So the Summit 300Bs are running at 75 milliamps in my amp and now have 50 hours of play. They're about $800 a pair, so they're not cheap. But you don't buy tubes, you adopt them. Yes, you adopt them. You experience their life, from start to their break-in, to the glory days of their peaks in emotional output, to their final moments when you hear that awful pop and life is over. I'm actually going to be doing what I did in part 1, and that is to enjoy a lovely drink. And in part 1 I had champagne. Now in part 2 I am having an old-fashioned with nothing less than Buffalo Trace. So grab your favorite drink, grab a seat, and let's talk about the Summit 300Bs and the Cryotones. Damn, that's good. I have some serious synergy going because this is the best music has ever sounded in my room. Ever. So what's making it so good? Is it the clean power in the Puritan? Is it the Streamer by the Pink Fawn? Or is it the DAC? It's the fingerprints from the preamp? Nah, it's the fingerprints on the rectifier for the preamp. Or is it the Cryotone conditioner between the preamp and this amplifier with the 300Bs? Because it sure as shit ain't this amp that's making it magic. Well, though I do like this thing. Maybe it's the Buffalo Trace making it sound so good. It's very possible. Is it the Summits or is it the Cryotones? Which ones are better?
Listen, you hear them? You hear those experts? All the pros on the internet and on YouTube. Listen. Listen to them argue. They're all saying different things. All different reasons as to why the sound is so good. Some are saying it's the source. Some the DAC. Some saying it's the amplifier. There's a few idiots that are saying it's the cables. Hear them.
There is something about being able to choose the bias of the tubes in your amplifier as opposed to an auto bias. Being able to change the bias on your own and listening to different bias settings, it's kind of cool. There's sonic differences depending on where you bias your power tubes. And you can choose whether you want a much more intense sound, higher dynamics, more presence. You can push that pretty far within the tube's limits. Just, keep in mind they're tubes. If you push them too hard, it might sound amazing, but it comes at the cost of the tube's life. It's not going to last that long. So I try to find a middle ground where I know the tube is comfortable and is nowhere near red plating, but I'll try to increase it just a little bit more than the middle ground to give me that little extra edge, again, without red plating. So while looking for the optimal bias that I wanted to use, I was reminded of something. Gain between your DAC and your preamp, and gain between your preamp and your amp. So my preamp has 3 analog outputs. 2 high gain, 1 low gain. And there's a voltage difference, obviously, between the high gain and the low gain. Because of my previous amplifier, my 211 amplifier, that amplifier had a much better dynamic range when I used the low gain output on my preamplifier. So without thinking about it, when I got my new 300B amp, I just used the same output on the low gain. But I found myself biasing the tubes a little bit on the high side because I found that when I biased them in their sweet spot in the middle, according to the manufacturer, the sound would clip. It would clip just as I would hit about 90 dB in room listening, which wasn't normal. And if I didn't bias the tubes on the high side, while on the low gain, I didn't have enough dynamic range. So I was trying to get that dynamic range, but I wasn't getting it. Then I realized, oh crap, I'm on a low gain output. Let me swap to the higher gain output from my preamp. And lo and behold, magical. Now I could bias the tube in its sweet spot where it needed to be. No more clipping. So when you have a high gain mismatch, your sound will saturate. It'll get too loud and it'll just feel like it'll burn. So your volume knob is not even going to get to 10 o'clock. You're going to find it harsh. And with a low gain, you're going to find yourself having to crank it past 12 o'clock or 1 or 2, but then it'll clip. It won't sound good. So you can have a mismatch in high gain, but you can also have a mismatch in low gain. So that's something that I was reminded of. Man, these tubes sound really detailed. Damn, they're detailed. They're really detailed. I mean, this helps, for sure. That detail, I find, flirts with losing the emotional connection. So it's so detailed, but it's not bright, and it's not edgy, and it's not harsh.
After 15 hours, probably around the 20-hour mark, this is middle of the day now. Enjoying coffee number 3. Just about done the Grace album by Jeff Buckley. It's very detailed. It's still very detailed. And today there's a hint of thinness in the mids. In the track called I Want Someone Badly. Yeah, his voice sounds a hint of nasaliness. It's a little nasally, a little bit. And the saxophone also sounds a tad thin to me. This could be part of the break-in. When you combine, I'm okay with a lot of detail, but when a lot of detail comes with thinner mid-range, that starts to get distracting because it doesn't sound natural. But this is a great album, though. Absolutely love this album. Jeff Buckley, Grace. Yeah, great album. All right, let's keep going.
So the Summits are cranking up the detail. They're still decent mids, but because the details are so high, sometimes it gives me the impression that the mids are a little on the dry side. And I really felt this with recordings like Dire Straits, where the guitar can have, in my opinion, a little bit of a dryness to it in the recording on its own. So the Summits are kind of bringing that out. But it's great because since the 20-hour mark, I don't think the Summits have changed character. Like, I haven't heard a difference. And I've been listening every night.
Well, my name's Conley Pettimore.
I skipped 2 nights in the last 2.5 weeks since the last video. That's it. I've been listening nonstop. I think that the PSVanes are a good way to actually get into high-end tubes without spending too much money. I guess I would kind of classify them as the entry level of the super tubes, of the high-end tubes. So other super tubes, well, of course, I consider Cryotones the super tubes, and they are double the price from the Summits. But you also have Takatsuki's, you have the Audionote ones, you have the Elrogs, Western Electric, also I consider a super tube. To a degree, Linley Elites, and I have to say the Summits come very close to Linley Elites that I've heard. And when I was comparing them to regular tubes, these Summit 300Bs to regular series, like the regular PSVane 300Bs, or even a Shogwang 300Bs, or compared to the TJ Music, the Summits are better than those tubes. I find that, hands down, if I had to choose between all the tubes that are currently in production without going into the super tube realm, the PSVane Summits are definitely a great buy. But I plugged the Cryotones back in just to make sure I had my contrast right. Holy shit. The Cryotones, plugged them back into the amplifier, biased them at the same level as the Summits. Because if I bias them any different, then that's not a fair comparison. There's such a breath of oxygen that flows into the room when the Cryotones are in compared to the Summits. The emotions, the life, the presence in the soundstage, to my ears, is just way better with the Cryotones. I could even say twice as better. Good, because they cost twice the price. The layering, the depth, the spaciousness, the size of everything, it's just so much more convincing and very hard to want to analyze when I have the Cryotones in the system. I just want to listen to music. And I've been going to bed late because when I've plugged the Cryotones back in, now I'm night number 4 in a row listening to the Cryotones. I can't go to bed. It is awesome. I was listening to 2 of the Dire Straits album. So Communique and Brothers in Arms. Brothers in Arms is very typical. Like, you hear it at shows way too much, but I still enjoy it. I just love all the tracks on Brothers in Arms. Then I was actually also going to country music, and I'm a big fan of Travis Tritt. I'm also a big fan of Hank Williams Jr. I like that generation. I really do. Maybe it's because I grew up with that generation. Now these guys are all getting old. Travis Tritt live album, A Man and His Guitar. It's just him on stage, and he brings in a couple guests.
This does not feel like being in a concert venue to me.
Including Marty Stewart for a couple songs. And they do an instrumental track, which is just awesome. Awesome. If you're a fan of guitar, 2 guys playing guitar, no words, great stuff. Check this album out if you're a fan of Travis Tritt. I love it. I compared that album with the Summits and the Cryotones. And the Cryotone made me feel like I was at the show, about second or third row. It sounded absolutely divine, melt in my couch good. With the Summits, it was fun because of that level of detail. So those little plucks on the guitar are really in your face. I would say that Travis Tritt's voice kind of suffered for it because the guitar, his voice is not on the same octave as the high strings on the guitar. So whenever he plucked those high strings on the guitar, it kind of took a little bit away from Travis's voice. And those details, when the crowd would react or clap, was a bit much. Like, I don't care to be focused on the crowd that much. I want to focus on the voice, on the music. I want it to be harmonious up front. And it was a bit more harmonious with the Cryotones than it was with the Summits. But look, this is my comparison of these 2 tubes, and I gotta say, the Summits are excellent, but they're not going to replace my Cryotones. Not yet, anyway. All right, so now I gotta get these tubes going past 100 hours, but I don't think they're going to change that much. I really don't think they're going to change because they haven't changed in the last 20-some hours. But I got to give them their shot all the way to 100 hours. Once I hit 100 hours and I know the character has stayed exactly the same, then I'm going to do comparisons of different bias settings. And I'll have sound clips, which I will have sound clips on my Patreon page at that point. But I'll have the links if you want to hear the sound clips comparing different biases on the Summits and different biases on the Cryotone. I will eventually have that on the Patreon page, and when they're ready, I'll have them linked down below. So that was part 2, ladies and gentlemen, of my very slow burn-in of the 300Bs by PSVane in their Summit series. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around, and part 3 should be coming soon, around the holidays. Buffalo Trace Old Fashioned. Delicious. And no, I did not have a joint on top of it like some of you suggested. A joint and whiskey? Damn. What is this, 1965?